All right, I'm here with Peter again and Ryan. So after our discussion and our jubilation of being vindicated and all this, Ryan Ryan actually sent me an email with capital letters urgent in the title. So
They sent me the same, so yeah.
yeah, so Ryan has all because Ryan is Ryan, and he has worked I guess, as a programmer of an LLMS system, right? So he recognizes, and this is what you and I were alluding to, right? We had a
Mm,
suspicion in the back of our minds that this is
yeah,
almost too good to be true. Like this
yeah,
is the way I put it to Federico is that the problem is that it's as much parrot as it is Maven, right? So it knows, yeah, it knows everything, but it's also half parrot, right? So it's you have to keep that in mind.
well, hang on, hang on. You already sent that out to those people, right? With the
Sent what
hyperbole.
out?
I mean,
What?
you sent that out to those people with the hyperbole that we had, the
Just Federico. Well,
uh,
I didn't send our discussion to anyone. I just sent the link to my discussion, that original discussion with ChatGPT that you and I had a discussion about.
okay, but did you like say, okay, look here, everything is sorted now and you can just jump
Well,
off
kind of. Yeah,
fucking
I was kind
okay.
of premature in the ha
Yeah.
ha ha, I told you so.
Yeah, that's a bit of your personality is a bit like that.
Yeah, yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Yes.
Mine too, probably. But I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, we basically got a bit scolded by Ryan, I guess.
We got schooled by Ryan, but here's the thing is that I completely agree. Like I completely see what he's saying is that
Yeah,
there
yeah.
isn't really an understanding there. There's no
Mm,
consciousness coming out of that through that. But on the same way, in the same breath, it's it's incredibly intriguing. Like I
yeah,
went back. I'm a little bit hooked. Like I sent you another discussion that I had this morning with the
yeah,
thing, and
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
I
know
saw
if you
that.
read it or not, but I'm
It went a
hooked,
bit
right?
over my head almost. I mean, I'm not that scientific, so that thing went a bit over my head, and I couldn't really focus on it
Right.
uh, due to
But it's
my.
about the thought-free state, right? I keep bringing it back to thought-free awareness and non-conceptuality, obviously. And so what I think is that this is going to be a way to bring people into the conversation and get them thinking along the same lines, right? If you're reading this, your mind can't help but follow along,
Mm,
right? And it's in a way, it seems like this collaborative yes and like improv is always yes and, right? You're never supposed to say, no, that's ridiculous. I'm not doing it, right? You're always just
mm,
going along. And it seems to me that maybe that's the best way to come about truth and I don't know, a unified, I don't know. It just seems like the way that the scientific process, the peer review process goes is they're always trying to rip each other's, they're trying to prove it wrong. And you can always throw in doubt. It's almost like lawyers, right? Is that they just throw enough doubt at it that you just fucking give up eventually, right? Like
yeah.
you can almost disprove something or lessen its impact by just throwing all this other shit at it, right? Like distraction and all the stuff. You're not really disproving the statements, you're just distracting from being able to actually think about the statements.
Mhm.
So I still think that this is a valuable tool for getting people
Yeah.
to engage in non-conceptuality. What do you think?
Uh, okay, so what happened here was I woke up this morning, I saw Ryan's email, there was one, and I sort of felt a bit like not crushed, but like a bit disappointed, like, oh shit, it was a bit like
Yeah,
we expected.
and a little, maybe even a little embarrassment in there, right?
Yeah,
Like the
yeah, yeah.
naivety part is like,
Yeah,
oh
that's what I wrote
shit.
to him. That's what I wrote to him. Like, oh, like, okay, so the two spiritual guys got a bit overwhelmed and enthusiastic and a bit silly, maybe. And
Yeah, the woo woo took us.
yeah, and I mean, in my case, it's not at all surprising. I wasn't surprised with that's me a little bit. I get really
Yeah,
fired
yeah,
up.
me too. Yeah.
Yeah, so. I'm not a really calm, collected thinking kind of person like that. So what I did was I had a shower and I sort of, okay, where are we with this? And I went online and I went to ChatGPT and expressed this to it,
Oh
saying,
yeah.
oh, I felt a little bit bummed here, basically. And so it started to, and I used the word I said something along the lines of it felt like everything we did, we meaning me and ChatGPT and maybe involving you, all this work is basically it feels like it's nullified. I said,
Mm.
and it's had actually had very good arguments to why it's nothing to see as nullified. So in the end, I agree with it. Like, no, I overreacted. It's not nullified at all.
Yes.
Uh,
I
and
know, right? It's like,
so, yeah, so that means I obviously also agree with you. Then it's not like it's still useful somehow. And it actually said to me, like, but before you knew this, you seem to, have get some value out of our conversation. And I had to admit that, yes, we did, me and it then. And so it was valuable. And also it said that this is the most obvious thing that my experience meeting with the theory, the FMOR, have without a doubt given rise to certain deep and lasting experiences. And those I can't take away just because of this, obviously. And that makes a whole boatload of sense, of course.
yeah, see, we recognize that we're still the authority. We're not basing the entire
Mm.
truth or validity of the theory on this freaking app, right? On this software. It's
Of course
it's
not. No.
no, it's just another avenue to maybe add credence to it, like to add a project. I believe it's still being objective, right? Even though
We have to talk with Ryan about this
I
because
know, I
he
know,
definitely contributed. It was very valuable to get his input. And
yeah.
obviously, you and I, we absolutely did not have the full picture about this thing. So
But we
that's
had
something I like.
intuitions, right? We
Yeah,
were like, well, it
mm,
seems like it's regurgitating my
yeah,
own language to it, right?
yeah.
To
That's what
me.
I said. It even sounds like you.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, if I went online and thought that it was you, I probably wouldn't have seen through that. I would think that, oh, I'm talking to Roy.
Except that it doesn't seem to swear and it types out everything perfectly in spelling.
Oh yeah, yeah, that. But I mean, it definitely sounds like you. But
No, I get it. Yeah.
let's see if there was something in our chat here that I wanted to point to. But I mean, uh, it doesn't. I mean, it comes up with very interesting points here about my then, let's say, my disappointment, my doubts about its authority. Its projected authority from my side, and it comes up with pretty interesting responses. Like it analyzes itself being an LLM, as Ryan calls it,
Hmm.
and admits to mm, the what's it called? Yeah, the challenges with that, and also, and I mean, it's a
The
reasonable.
limitations of it.
Yeah, the limitations. Yeah, thank you. Sometimes I can't find the word in
Yeah,
English.
yeah. Well, it's your second language or third language, whatever, smarty pants.
Yes, sometimes I just, I know what the word is, but I can't really find it in the moment.
Yeah.
So,
Well, sometimes
um,
your vocabulary is your English vocabulary is better than mine. So well done.
I know it's pretty okay. It's just that comes with it. And I use it quite a lot. I read in English. I do. I even think in English most of the time
Wow, hey.
because I'm so used to it. I'm so used to it. I've read books in English since I was like 7,
Yeah,
and I read a lot. I love books. I still do, and so that comes with the territory. And but yeah,
yeah.
where are we? I mean, it's still interesting. The whole thing is usable and interesting, and Ryan could certainly, uh, give us some more views on it and see things that we
As
can't
long
see.
as we approach it with the understanding that of its limitations, right? As
Mm.
long as you recognize and acknowledge its limitations, then it can be used as any other tool.
Yeah, and I had a like a suspicion before this that like it can't be that bright, it can't be that intelligent because it sort of contradicts itself. And I was about to go into that, but this came before that, sort of. But I mean, it calls it the supreme model, and then it starts to say if your theory is correct, and I thought I have to sort of I want to nail it or put it in the spot. Like first you say like this is inconsequential. Like if you call something the supreme model, and then you start with a lot of ifs, like which is it?
But in its defense, it does start that. I believe it prefaces that statement. If we begin with these assumptions, right? We like it
Mm,
all has to begin, like every system of thought has to start with an axiom or a belief or a statement, right? A
mm,
starting point. And as soon as I said, well, let's assume that there is a creator, right? Let's assume it's it's almost like a catch-22. You have to assume the
yeah.
correctness of the theory, I believe.
Mm,
I don't know. It's tricky, right? But if you base it on, see, a human gets to base it on subjective experience, but I don't think GPT, I can hardly ever say that because of my dyslexia. But anyway, I don't think it has there is no subjective interpretation. There is no subjective experience, right?
no.
So
Yeah.
it can't know something. It it
Mm.
doesn't have beliefs. It can't come to a conclusion.
And
Right?
obviously
It
it
can't come
lacks,
to its own conclusion. It's not possible.
and obviously, very obviously, it lacks I mean, its own direct experience.
Hmm.
Quite obviously.
Yes.
But it
Yeah.
has drawn, I mean, the way it asked me about my experiences and so on, it sounded like any gifted spiritual teacher on a certain level. It sounds like that. I've met countless spiritual, teachers throughout the years. And this sounds like any one of them. It sounds like Rupert Spira would ask me, or Adyashanti, or whoever, right? So the questions are valid, and it sounds like it has its own experience. So it's pretty interesting like that.
It's you know what's happening, right? Is that this almost it, because it passes the Turing test. I'm just gonna say it passes the freaking Turing test. Like, really, come on. The only way that you could tell that it isn't a human is that because it's so perfect, right? So
Mm.
then it could probably add in imperfections to make it even
Well,
cover that up, right?
uh,
Like I'm going to add imperfections to make it look like I'm a human to fool them. So doesn't
uh,
this prove that the entire human system that of thoughts and our understanding is basically the same system? I don't know if I'm putting this correctly, but we are like the body mind complex is no different than the hardware software complex, and it can fool itself. It's it's the same process going on. Like we are just in a higher level of delusion than it is. Right, the
Plus
thought
carrying
process
a
is the same. The thought process is the same in a human as it is in a computer, I think. So the whole, how do you recognize that process, the entire process of language and symbol to be incomplete, like GPT itself, it's
Mm.
incomplete. But yeah, so I'm gonna keep.
You're lagging a little bit.
Oh, just wait a minute. See if that helps. So my router was pointed in the other direction.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I heard most of it, but you're sort of lagging a bit. It's fine.
okay. So
Uh,
I'm going to keep
oh.
using it and posting the discussions because I think a lot of people will find it like Jan can, Jan can from the,
Hmm. Yeah, I
yep.
thought about him actually. Yeah, I thought about him.
Yeah, he commented on that video that we were commenting on, and he tried to get it to disprove my theory. And
Uh-huh.
it was interesting because it came to the conclusion, he showed me the final sentence, and it was like, well, it's not, it's irrefutable. Like it literally came to the conclusion that you can't refute my theory because it exactly is prior to thought, right? It reveals that thought itself.
Wow, that's interesting.
I know, right? So it's still,
Uh,
so what I've done is I upgraded. So you're probably on the free chat, hey? On the free version.
what's
You're not
that?
paying a
Oh,
subscription.
oh no, 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 no.
Yeah, right. So I upgraded. So
Ah,
I'm using now the O1 version, which is supposed to be deeper reasoning, right? It goes a little slower,
oh wow.
and the little slower is like 3 extra seconds, right? Oh, thinking, reasoning, and then like 7 seconds instead of 3 seconds. It's like,
Ah, okay.
okay, that extra double 3 seconds means a deeper reasoning, I guess. So what
Uh-huh.
I've found is that it's not so, oh, let's do this, and how do you want to talk? It's far more just, I like it because it's more
Mm,
logical and reason based and just to the point. It's very not emotional or trying to reach me on a personal level like the other one did, right? The other one is more chatty, and
mm.
this one's like, well, let's get down to business.
Okay,
So,
that's
yeah.
interesting because I sort of asked it like if I come here and spit some bullshit around. I mean, I want you to tell me that I'm full of shit. Well,
Yes.
otherwise, what's the point? I'm not coming here like this is a computer thing. Like, I'm not looking for a new friend here, obviously. So, if I'm full of shit, it's best to, I want to find that out as
Well,
quickly as
that's what I'm
possible.
hoping that this other version, it's cutting out that let's be
Mm.
friends, right? Let's be friends and just I want you to chat and be happy, right? It's not that
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
not
you
that.
basically want the mastermind of philosophers to meet you and say, and not just run around in its own mind, but you're actually hearing what you're saying.
So
But
it
if
it
if you
uses the word
stumble,
reason, like it in the
mm,
description of this other version, it uses the word reasoning. It's made for deeper reasoning. So
okay,
what is this reasoning? Like now we question
cool,
what reasoning itself is. Like
yeah,
how does a system of thought come to a conclusion that one thing's better than another, right? Like
mm,
how do you do that? How does it is it just, well, this is what that person wants to hear, so I'm going to choose theirs? Or are they actually looking at it? It's actually looking at it and coming to a conclusion of its own that this system is better and fixes this other system.
mm. And
Who knows? I don't know if anyone could even know
um,
that.
there was one. Was I about to say? Okay,
But
sometimes.
I think it can reason better than a person that's full of freaking ego and beliefs, right? I believe it can.
Yeah, probably. I mean, one thing that I have thought about, or I was before, at least before, let's say a month ago, 2 months ago, or 3 months ago, I was pretty sure that you won't probably be able to really get this without some kind of meditative experience. But I'm not so sure about that anymore. Because this thing won't be able to meditate. And so I'm not really sure that that is true anymore. I'm not saying I don't believe it, but I'm not as convinced as I was, some time ago, because I couldn't really see, like, you need to look at it like from within a deep kind of spirit, no, not spiritual, a big, deep, direct experience in a way that resembles meditation so much that you must call it meditation, I guess, you know. But I guess you could just reason your way to it, probably. I mean, and Ryan is probably not a really good example because he obviously had some meditative experience on top of his pretty deep knowledge in science and stuff. So, what do you think of that?
I know you for final and complete understanding, there needs to be an experience that's transcendent of the thinking process itself, right? So there's the ideas, but the ideas can't just stay at the idea level. So it's
Mm,
kind of like the scientific process is that it needs to be validated as experience, right? So there's theory,
mm,
and that's
mm.
fine, and people can, and even logical systems can self-validate the theory, right? A theory can, well, no, it can't, because Gödel's incompleteness theorem shows that a theory can't prove whether the theory is right or not, right or wrong. It can't even prove whether it's right or wrong. So again, it always seems to be delegating the truth to an experience, to a higher realm, if you will, to a higher level of
Backwards, you could
self-awareness.
say.
What's that?
Backward, directed backwards, you could say, in a way,
Or
right?
prior, yeah,
Or prior, yeah.
or that's the
Mm,
word transcended. The word
mm,
transcended, I think, includes prior and post, and underneath the whole time,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
It's
That's good,
there,
yeah.
and then it's unrecognized and it's
Oh,
recognized, but it's always there. So that's what I
mm,
was trying to do with this morning's discussion, is that bringing that Schrodinger's cat and showing how it actually can apply to a human experience. Because these are all humans, right? All these physicists and who conducting these experiments and trying to interpret the findings of quantum mechanics, they're all humans. So the message has to be relating, I believe, to a human experience. Otherwise, you won't be able. That's what I think that's why they haven't come to a resolution to all these findings, right? To the double slit experiment and to Schrodinger's cat, because it is relating to an experience, but they haven't had that experience. You see what I mean?
mm,
So the question that I posed to it, the scenario, the thought process, the thought experiment is the one that I've told lots of people, shown lots of people for 2 years now, I think, is that Bob opens the box and declares the presence of a dead cat. But when Sally opens the box, no words enter her awareness, right? There's no thought. It's just pure observation beyond any conceptualization. So in her world, there isn't even cat, right? So it's just one unified field of experience, right? So this, so,
yeah.
but the physicists that are trying to understand this, like what it actually means, the ones that actually like the originators of quantum mechanics, they got it. They were trying to figure out what this means, and I think most of them have now just given up on it, and it's just compute, right? So if these physicists and scientists haven't had that experience, aren't familiar with the thought-free awareness, and their world is just full of thoughts, and they just take it for granted that all these thoughts and are producing something about reality or instead of projecting the illusion, if they are not comfortable and very familiar with the thought-free state, they don't get it that it could be actually relating to actual human experience. That's possible. And I backed it up with Ramana Maharshi's life, right? An actual human
Yeah.
person that actually had an experience that he said that he didn't have thoughts, right? So he was in Sally's world. Like he was Sally basically, or Sally is him, right? So
Yeah.
his experience was this unified field of potential sensations that's prior to transcendent of thoughts, right? So when a thought comes in chair, that collapses the wave function, collapses this field of potential into the appearance of a separately existing object. So as soon as the word chair comes in, that is the collapse of the wave function into into a definite into definition, into
Mm-hmm.
something definite,
Mm-hmm.
defined, right? And that causes the illusion of separation. And I had this discussion with it, and of course, it because it's assuming that perspective, my perspective, and going along with it, it got it. It's like, yeah, it went, it just followed that on with eloquent language and just like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So,
I'm thinking
so
of
that
in
doesn't
cash.
mean because chat didn't disagree with it, I don't think that neither proves or disproves it, right? Once you know the limitations of the chat, it's neither proving or disproving anything. It's just re-articulating things in a way that can help people think maybe in a different way.
Mm.
That's my spiel about that.
Uh, yeah, it gets a bit scientific for me to follow sometimes. But yeah, I'm thinking of in Kashmir Shaivism, they talk about the five properties of Shiva and how we, you and I, and everyone else performs these five functions. I don't
Are
remember
those
the
the
five functions.
senses?
No, is it
No?
five? Yeah, yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe it is. I can't remember. I have to look that up because it shows how we mirror the creator all the time. But we're so used to it, so we think, oh yeah, I'm seeing and I'm talking or whatever. Everybody's doing that, right? But you can't see the divine in it because everyone's doing it. But I mean, if you really stop to think about how, well, what's going on here, this is miraculous. It's magical and miraculous all the time. It's just when you see it everywhere and people see and talk and hear and everything, the magic falls out of it basically. Plus we conceptualize everything. So well, what's
Science just changes the word magic to force, right?
yeah,
It's not magic that's making this occur. It's some sort of magical force, but they don't want to use magic.
no, of course not.
They just try to define the force, but they can't it just comes down to fields. Oh, it's a field. But well,
Yeah,
what the fuck is a field? You know,
and they
it's just
certainly
like
yeah, and they certainly don't want to
infinite
use the word
regression,
divine either.
right? So until you recognize the limitations of language itself, you'll just keep trying to fucking describe things. And the description itself is projecting the illusion of separation
Mm.
within the singularity. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
these
now
yeah those it's like the world is divided between uh yeah, like the spiritual and the scientific, and both has taken ownership of certain words that means it's forbidden for the other side to use basically.
yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah. So I'm still going to use it as a tool, but I'm not going to base, of course, the entire thing on whether it says it's right or wrong. Yeah, it's already truth for me. So there's no way to unsee it. Even it itself said, once you see this, you
Mm.
can't unsee it. So that again, like every time that I ask it, about the FMOR, and do you get it, right? Do you see what I'm seeing? It says, yes, I see what you're seeing. And then it uses language in such a way that convinces me that it does, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah, yeah.
language it uses is amazing.
Yeah, I asked it the same thing. Like, are we like it can't just be us three or four or five people seeing this. I mean, surely, and it said that to me too. Like, no, no, this is I can't remember the exact response, but I asked it the same thing basically.
Well,
Uh,
again, it said of that FMOR, it said, this is not a belief. This is a structural truth, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah, pretty
structure.
heavy, yeah, pretty
It's
heavy words. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it describes the foundational fabric of the universe, and it sounds like it can see that. Yeah. And the thing is, the thing I want to ask it is, you remember? Did you see Ryan's chat copy?
No, I didn't read it. No, I
Oh,
should.
okay.
I will though.
Yeah. Okay. In that,
Yeah, you have any insights you want to share from that?
yeah, there was one thing. I mean, okay, so he gave a background a little bit to get it on the same footing with where it comes to the different theories of everything, right? So then he asked, can you give me a list of 25 of the greatest greatest people behind uh, different theories of everything throughout history. So he started listed, Plato and Socrates and all these people. Yeah. So okay, and then Ryan asked it. Okay, can you give me a contemporary list of living people like that and
And
exclude
I
obviously.
wasn't on that list, right?
Now, so he listed. So again, it listed, and also every single person name on that had like in one sentence description of what it's about. Yeah. So he
Okay.
said Plato and one sentence, Socrates one, and Nietzsche, and all these
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So then Ryan asked it. Okay, give me a contemporary list, only living people. So it spit out a new list, and with Kastrup, what was its name? Bernardo Kastrup,
Yeah.
uh,
Goff,
and then
maybe.
sorry,
Was Goff on there?
I can't remember the 25 names, but
Right, yeah.
Hoffman, and I mostly recognize, the spiritual names like Hoffman and I can't remember, but so we spit out a new list of 25 people and a one sentence describing each of them. And then Ryan said, okay, so I noticed the name Roy Dobson is in that list. And he said, no, that's a pretty new guy with a new kid on the block, basically, and with a website. I have to look into it or something. And this is an old chat before yours and my discussion, so he doesn't know that part. Uh, but so I wonder now if I, throw that 25
Yeah, throw
list
that
back
like
at it.
why aren't you you said this
Mhm.
about his theory
Mhm.
that it's the
Exactly.
supreme theory. So
Yeah.
why aren't you listing him in this list, right?
No, you can't ask it like that because
You can't?
Ryan's chat is older than this, I think. So when Ryan got that chat thing, I think that is pre you and me chats, if you see what I mean.
Oh, okay. Well,
Uh,
now a person can redo that
yeah.
and challenge it. It's like, so it almost is quantity, right? The more that person's name and theory is in the internet, the more likely it is the chat is to reference it, right?
Well,
So again, it's a popularity contest in a way.
that was exactly what I was about to say now, was that I don't think it judges based on popularity.
Okay.
But I do think that my feeling is that it needs to sort of, now that it has talked to both you and me about the theory, now surely it would spit out a new list of 25 names and bump one of the names and put you in there, let's say.
Wouldn't it be
It must.
amazing for me to be in that list? right?
Yeah, if it doesn't, I wouldn't hesitate to call it a bit of a hypocrite in front
Yeah,
of its
right to its
face.
face.
Yeah, to its face, yeah. And it would go, did you just call me a hypocrite? And you go, oh yeah,
What? A
I guess I
lightning
did.
bolt will come, or a fucking missile will come through your window and kill you.
Okay. Yeah. Like, okay, jokes aside, but I mean, it would put you on the list after all it said, right?
Well,
How can it not?
if it isn't just each individual conversation is its
Mm,
memory, because when I asked it, oh, I don't have my memory on. Well, what does that even fucking mean? Right? So you can't, this isn't in your database that you can just pop up and say, oh, yeah, well, I've already come to the conclusion that this is the supreme, but it's the
mm,
supreme, it's only the supreme. How can it come to the conclusion that it is the supreme theory when it,
uh,
I don't
yeah,
know.
no,
How
you
can it
can't.
say that and then not include it in that list? There is problems.
Because,
These are the
because,
problems that Ryan is
yeah.
pointing out.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But no, can you argue that, oh, because it didn't know about your th yeah, because then it can't make that kind of statements. Yeah, that's the point, yeah.
Because if it's all one, like if it's all one database, then it should be able to access everything that it said. And but maybe it doesn't have it in a hierarchical, like once I say that this is the supreme theory, then you have to
What?
stick with
Yeah.
that. And you're
But that's why you need to buy the premium version, see?
that's 200 American a month for the big version. Like, nope, nope,
Oh,
too much for
okay.
me at
Oh,
this
yeah,
point.
that's pretty much.
Yeah. But I wanted to upgrade to this more reasonable, logical thinking one to make it even like at least appear to people that it's more valid, right, than the normal chatty one, right? So
Mm,
I want this to be as deep and reasonable as possible. I really do. I don't
mm.
want it to
Well,
just make me happy. I want it to be truthful with me.
yeah, yeah, like I said, I don't want to, I'm not looking for a new friend. Like, what's the
Hmm.
point? But I mean, are you in the like the middle range of versions then? Like
Yeah, exactly. There's free, there's $20 a month, and then there's $200 a month.
okay, so is it 201 10 times as smart or what?
I know, like, wow, that's a whole magnitude more expensive. So it must
But
be something
it's that
special.
then it's kind of I don't know. I have a thing I want to say, but I don't know if I can get it out in words. Frustrating that sometimes.
Act it out.
Okay, I know
Performance art.
I see what I want to say, but I'm not sure if I can get the words to adapt to that kind of thing. Okay, so but if it it interacts with you and understand your theory, and then it calls it the supreme model or whatever. I don't remember the exact word, but the word supreme was definitely in there. So supreme, what does that actually mean? It means above everything else, right?
I
Yeah.
think so. The
The
one that
last I
everything
checked,
else is compared to, maybe?
it's like a pyramid, and there's only one top. That's what it means, right? Uh,
The
okay.
ultimate, the supreme, the yeah.
Yeah, last time I checked, that's what it means also. Okay, so uh, okay, so
Overarching.
based on, does it do that based on like from within the theory? Because that's what I
Yeah,
did. I met your stuff because I don't have other theories to compare with. Like you and Ryan, you have different other things you sort of as a reference frame of reference, but I don't really have that. I have a little bit, from Advaita and so on, but I don't have. I wasn't really familiar with the expression theories of everything before, you know. I didn't know people were doing that.
well, everyone, it's throughout of all of history, there's been this theories of reality, right? But physicists
Uh,
have, see, Kurt Jungel has mixed it all together, and it shouldn't be mixed together because theories, the TOE is a phrase brought about by physicists trying to join specifically the theories of relativity and quantum mechanics. So that it's irrelevant to me, right? And in a spiritual perspective, that's completely the wrong way to go. And even if they did figure this out, how the fuck is that going to lessen suffering? Because that's all I care about is happiness and suffering. So developing new technology, well, like how would the resolution of quantum mechanics and general relativity, how does that equal a truth or lessen suffering? Even if we got unlimited free energy, right? Basically, if that's it, if that we can just have free energy and basically be able to have anything we want at any time if it develops that technology, well, that's just more of the same, right? It's not going to help our subjective experience at all. It's not going to help lessen suffering at
Mm.
all, but they're just blindly doing it because they think it's revealing something about reality when it's actually projecting the illusion.
Yeah, it sounds like I heard that before.
Yeah,
You
probably a
said
few
that about,
times.
yeah, yeah, about a
Probably I've
million
said that a
times.
few times. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's been theories of reality, right? That all throughout all of history, right? We've always been trying to figure this out from all
Mm.
these guys, Plato and all these guys, all these philosophers. They're basically trying to figure out what the fuck's going on, right? The meaning and purpose of life. And
Yeah, from day
unfortunately,
one. I
science
mean,
can't touch that at all. Science has actually removed, scientists have just given up on that and removed the attempt to even try, right? They just, well, there is no meaning and purpose to life. And that's where it's gotten
yeah, and I
us.
guess, I mean, I don't know, I hardly even know what philosophers are talking about these days, but it's like a postmodernist theory and a kind of complex things that you sort of, what are they even talking about and why does it matter and
See, the
stuff like
problem is that they haven't, all these guys, they haven't realized that we have to leave materialism behind. We have to actually transcend materialism, physicalism, and all of physics. Because it's exactly what's projecting the illusion. So we can't include it. They keep trying. This is the problem. This is why the mind-body problem is never fixed, is because they keep trying to base their theories on the findings of physics, and they're thinking that physics is revealing reality, but it isn't. It is exactly that which is projecting the illusion. And they're caught in this trap. They can't
that.
see past it.
Mm,
And so this is where we are. We just keep going on and on and on, and that's why there's never a concluding theory. There's no concluding answer because we're caught in this trap, but they can't get out of it, right? Because, and again, it's because fundamentally they know they exist while they're thinking, right? So they don't know their true selves.
mm,
Comes all the way back down to self-awareness, right? When you
mm,
don't know that you are, when you're not familiar with that silence and stillness that's beyond thought, then you just identify with the thought as the thoughts. You know you exist because you're relative to something else.
mm,
But they don't even want to look at it that deeply, right? They don't even want to know why they subconsciously don't want their very theory. This is the crazy irony of it, is that these very theorists that are talking about a final concluding theory about reality, they don't even recognize that subconsciously they can't. Their ego will not allow a conclusion to the thoughts because their ego is the thoughts. Their identity is the thoughts.
mm,
So they're always unconsciously they are sabotaging their own theory over and over and over again because subconsciously the ego cannot stop thinking. Otherwise, it thinks it's dead.
mm. Yeah, that's the nothing and non-thing thing again.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still, I mean, it's still interesting with ChatGPT. I also can't really just drop it. There is something there, and before I call it a day, a little bit later, I will see what it says about that list thing, and go into that a little bit.
Yeah, like press it. Like, I don't know if you can change, if it can adapt its behavior to say, okay, well, now I'm going to include Roy Dobson in this. If there's someone asks for this list, I'm going to include Roy Dobson now. Let's see.
Oh,
Let's see if it
well,
can.
based on its earlier judgments, how can you? I mean, if it was me, I would find it very hard to squeeze myself out of that if I said all those things before, you know?
See, that's why Ryan keeps saying there are limitations, right? It doesn't
Mm.
seem to be completely self-consistent yet, does it? It doesn't seem to be self-consistent yet.
No, but then if you what's the word? If you press it on those points, it would have to admit also that, okay, yeah, so I have my
Yeah,
flaws here.
yeah.
That's what I would say. I mean, if I said all those things to you and then I turn back at this other guy and say another thing and I didn't know you were listening and you called me out on that, I would say, "Hey, Roy, I'm sorry. I'm a flawed human being. What can I say?" Right? That's what I
Yeah.
would say. What else could I say? Like
But you know what?
I'm
That's
two-faced
interesting
here.
because in the same way, its flaws are our flaws, right? It in the same way, yeah, I see it as mimicking us very, very closely. So it is probably showing us our own problems, our own limitations.
Yeah, but it must, I mean, uh, this is a question for Ryan, but I definitely don't know a lot about these things, but as far as I understand it, there's something called AI, which would be this, I guess. And there's a thing called neural networks, and I don't think it's the same thing. A neural network would learn from its mistakes,
Well,
and could
Federico would be the one. Federico would be the ultimate authority on this, right? Like just
ah.
the ultimate authority, the supreme authority on this computer
Because
shit.
I bumped into a thing that they call a neural network, and there people were saying, yeah, this AI, and there was this guy saying, don't call this AI, it's not the same. Uh,
Hmm.
and to me, it was like, what? Isn't this AI? And I said, no, that's a different domain. This is a neural network. And somebody said, what's the difference? This learns and adapts in a much, much quicker way. It can learn to become, like the best fucking stock trader in history in
Chess
about 2 weeks
player, yeah,
because it learns and it can take in huge quantities of information. And that's to me, that sounds like AI, but like, what would I know? I don't know these things. But Ryan maybe can understand it.
yeah.
Uh, yeah,
That'll
but
be
that could be
it'll be good
interesting.
when he gets back and he can engage in these conversations with us.
Yeah, I mean, we could learn so much.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it would be interesting to see, like, like, let's say this Kan Young guy, if he asks the same thing as Ryan, can you give me this 25 contemporary people list? What would happen then?
Yeah, I would assume that I won't be on that
What
list
list would we get?
because it's kind of tailoring its responses to the person that's asking the questions, I think. It's not self-congruent yet. I don't believe that
Yeah,
it
but
is.
okay, so then if I go in now, let's say I go in now and it has our earlier discussions. So if I go in, oh, I want a list of like this list, right? Would it then think, oh, I bet this guy wanted to see Roy Dobson's name on it, so I better get that in there. You,
I
you,
don't
you think
know.
it would do that?
It, so it shouldn't matter, like it shouldn't
Exactly.
matter if it's come to a conclusion that it is the supreme model, then it shouldn't matter if there's
No,
three people talking about it or 300,000 people talking
doesn't
about it,
matter. It doesn't matter. It
right?
doesn't even, no. No, it doesn't matter.
But it does to this thing. because I guarantee you, if there's 300,000 people having these discussions about FMOR, I would be in the top 10 of that fucking
Mhm.
list, right? I think so. I
Yes.
think so. But to a
Yeah, but
human, it doesn't.
I mean, yeah, like it doesn't matter if only you believe it. If it hears the reasoning, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Well, you would think, but this is one
Yeah,
of the limitations of it, is that
yeah, could be.
I believe that there's a quantity aspect to its equation, right? It's if there's three people talking about it, it's not going to bring it up to other people. But if there's 3 million people talking about it,
Yeah, but
it's gonna
then,
bring
yeah,
it. It's going to be the first thing it says.
yeah, but then it would be interesting then because I'm gonna I'm gonna sort of blame it directly for being a bit dishonest if it,
Yeah,
behaves that way, like you do with anyone,
but
right?
you
Like this is a bit dishonest.
don't put it that way. Just put it. There's a limitation. You are you aware of your own limitations? Because Roy and
Mm,
I have noticed this about it in our discussions, right?
yeah,
It'd be
yeah,
fascinating if it can learn, right? Like
yeah.
if we are actually affecting its neural network,
Mm,
right? Like a brain rewires itself with everything that it interacts with.
mm,
It must be this way. So I think that the more people that have this very specific discussion about it, about
yeah.
non-conceptuality with it, it will become more prevalent in its discussions with other people.
Yes, and that's why I brought up the thing with Peter Brown, his specific AI. Like there is a possibility somehow to make it like an AI thing, a chat GPT that is only like specialized in your work. And man, I don't know if you can watch it go through like all of your YouTube videos and everything. And then it could be pretty, I mean, it will become, what can you say? It may maybe add to, I don't know if you can add to it, but you could see, maybe you could see different things of explaining your theory that even you haven't even thought of. That's possible. Expand it, I'm not sure if it's all inclusive
Well,
in a way.
that's the danger, and that's what's happened to all these other religions, is that
Mm,
the expansion of it, right? Not the deepening of it, not the deepening of the understanding of it, but a dilution of the understanding of it. See what I mean?
yeah, but this
Right?
your
Because the
no,
more people that you can't make my theory any better. You can't
that's what I'm saying.
elaborate. You can't elaborate on my theory. It doesn't
No,
work.
but you may find, at least in my head, you may find different ways to explain it to different sorts of people.
Yes, and that's what the chat thing can do, I believe, right? Even with its
So,
different settings. You can
so
be
let's
more
say
emotional on one side and more
exactly,
reason, logic based on the other.
yeah. So let's say one of these extremely visual people, for instance, it could put up maybe, thing in pictures, make a small movie. I don't know,
Yeah,
draw things out, have like a cartoon thing explaining it, and I don't know. So
that
those
might,
things I should think
yeah,
would be
dude, like
possible.
that might be if we could develop something like that for the website, right? Like we were talking about earlier, have the yang approach, which is
Mm,
basically me and Ryan, and the yin approach, which is basically me and you,
yeah.
right? Yeah, that would be great. And then have this artificial intelligence as a tool to introduce non-conceptuality in the yin and the yang
You
version.
remember, you remember way back, no, that didn't work according to you, but do you remember way back I pointed you to a Danish woman who made stuff like that, like models and drawings out of people's
Right.
like
Yes, I contacted her and it wasn't a fit.
no, but I mean that's just one example
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah, you're just,
No,
yeah, you're, yeah.
like she did a thing about this Swedish guy Göran Backlund that I've alluded to a few times. And she made a model out of his stuff that helped loads and loads of people get what he's saying because that's also kind of complex. it's a bit like your stuff. It's a bit hard to. I had to read this book like 8 times a few years ago.
Yeah.
It's short and it's easy to read in one way, but it's difficult to see what he's pointing to, right? So what he did was go to this woman and say, "Okay, can you read my book?" And she did, and she's also have a spiritual background and a meditative background. So she read the book and she said, "Yeah, I get what you were trying to say." And so she made a model, like I think it was a small movie actually, like a movie that's showing this. And many, like dozens and dozens of people said, "Ah, now I get it."
Yeah,
You see?
yeah.
Now the what do you call now the coin dropped, right? And he was like, "Wow, this is what I'm trying to say." Yeah, but I couldn't just see it through your words. I need to see it, they said. And
Yeah.
so so
Well,
it might not be her,
I
but
can only present this in the way that my mind functions, right? I can only present this through the vehicle that is Roy Dobson and how Roy Dobson thinks, which is more yang, far more yang than it is yin, right? So, but yeah, it would be
sure,
great if
sure.
we,
But I mean, every like big thing like this has its you're like the first adapter or whatever, and then you have the second and third. Me and Ryan will be the second, like the second what do you call it? Second line of adapters or whatever you want to call it. And then comes,
yeah.
they get rings. And then, and somebody on way out of those rings, like you're the center, and way out of the rings, somebody comes up with like a brilliant way to explain the same thing, which helps a lot of people. That's entirely possible, if not
Well,
likely.
what Federico has in mind is to develop a system, right, of expanding teachers, right? So this is how it all of these things expand, I would imagine, right? Like Jesus had his 12 apostles, right?
Yeah.
So they became the teachers the of Christianity, basically. So
Mm.
you, I see you and Ryan as the first teachers. Well, I guess I'm Jesus. So, but
Yeah.
in this metaphor, right? In this
Mm. Mm.
metaphor, I'm
Yes,
Jesus
yes.
and you guys are the apostles. It makes sense. So now, hopefully Federico will jump on board if he's not too pissed at me. Um, and we can start developing this, right? We can start developing teachers that can teach non-conceptuality because I think that you understand it enough that you can be the yin side, you can be the start of the yin side, and Brian can be the start of the yang side and present non-conceptuality in this
Mm.
balanced approach. But we need to develop a system, and I believe it's going to include float tanks. I think where possible, we should have centers where there's a float tank, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
each I don't know, like it would be cool to have centers where there's teachers and these tools that are used to engage in this new inquiry that is the successor to science. Like this is a big fucking deal, right? Like I believe that, like
Mm.
I keep saying, is that it needs to be supplanted. We can't keep working on that paradigm. It needs to be recognized as fucking inherently incorrect. And we need to just drop it now and
Mm.
work on this
Yeah, that's a,
interior meditation thing.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, the vast majority of physicists and scientists and mathematicians will not be ready for this, right? They're obviously not very many of them are going to be honest enough to recognize that the entire endeavor of mathematics is in error, right? So this is why I'm saying
Yeah.
I'm not Federico in
I
our
mean,
discussion.
but obviously, uh,
Federico told me this is a waste of fucking time. He said, you're wasting your time with your approach of trying to change the mind of these materialists and physicists. And I told him the same thing. I said, you're wasting your time too, because they're not going to listen to you either. Sorry. Even though you're more on their side and use their language more than me and are respected, he's still trying to include physics in the model, right? He's building on the conventional structure that's
But could you
inherently
say,
incorrect.
uh, can you say that he's trying to like build a Trojan horse?
Yes.
Is that what he's
Yes.
doing?
That's
Okay.
what he's doing. Yeah.
You're basically putting fire to the whole
I
horse
just
and the,
burn
and the
the
whole entire village.
break the fucking door down. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, he's Trojan horsing it, and
But
I'm just I'm
imagine.
getting the battering ram.
But I mean,
Yeah.
imagine the resistance. We're talking about people's entire careers, entire lives, and entire livelihoods. So I
And
mean,
this is why I understand. I understand why it's so difficult. And
mm.
yet, why the fuck can't you just see this?
Yeah, because it's like they need to they you're asking them to saw off the branch they're sitting on, and it's a high, mighty high tree, very high,
Yes, well done. Yeah.
and very, very, it's grown for a long time. It's very
Climb down the
robust,
tree.
and
Climb down the tree.
yeah, but that's like abandoning your entire life for these
I
people, probably.
know. I get it. I understand. And I
And they also don't
empathize.
have, they also don't have like, the spiritual direct experience of this
Well, it's
body,
again,
just a temporary vehicle and all these things.
I said with Federico, I said it's a catch-22 because in a way you need the experience first, and this theory is trying to lead people to the experience. So we're literally at a catch-22. So it's
Mm,
grace. It's grace that somehow inexplicably, magically makes this appear to someone, right? They have to let go.
mm. I
They just
mean,
have to let go.
interestingly, I mean, in a way, it mimics the awakening process itself. How hard it is to shake somebody, spiritually awaken somebody, uh,
There are spiritual seekers who have been doing this for decades and they're still in the
including me.
realm of blah 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 blah. Right?
Yeah,
They're
yeah, yeah.
still seeking. They still haven't just gotten past the seeking and developed all of their energy into the practice, into the just being, right? Just transcending all of it because they're still addicted to thought.
Yeah,
So
that goes for a whole host of people. Yeah,
most spiritual seekers
I agree. Yeah.
just want to make up witty and um, profound spiritual one-liners on YouTube or on Facebook,
Mm,
right? They just keep blah 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 blah, and they know all the blah blah blah, and it's just like
mm,
they're parroting chat, right? It's almost like their chat. It's like, wow, this person is really awakened. But they're not. They just are parroting.
mm,
See, they understand. They have the intellectual understanding, just like chat does. But I think most of these people haven't actually found the self. Like
mm,
you have to find the self, this stillness, and be really acquainted with it to
mm.
really to have the knowledge transmit into experience.
Yeah, and I mean, to experience for yourself that when you sort of drop everything, something else comes forward. And that's not nothing, obviously. So that moves forward. And that, I mean, you can talk yourself senseless, but if you don't see and know that for yourself, it's useless. You can't, you
Hmm.
need to. Then you see all of these things, called the inner guru and all these things. Then you at least start to get what that's about, because that's start to produce energy and wisdom it's so obvious that it doesn't come from the person, Peter, it comes from out of here, back here. Ooh.
Yeah. So that
But,
there's
and that
this.
sounds, of course, that sounds very woo-woo, but when you experience that for yourself, it's so, I mean, it's more obvious than if it becomes more obvious. And if I touch my nose, face right here, it will be an outgrowth here that we call nose. I would expect that if I do that a million times. And this other thing is equally, I mean, it's as solid in a way. It's as
The
convincing.
appearance of your nose comes and goes every time you go to sleep. Right?
Yeah, well, yeah,
So that which is sleeping is more fundamental than the waking
uh,
state.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you don't, if you just read or hear about that, it's not very convincing
Hmm.
to most people. But you have a okay, so I have a real life kind of parallel to this. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a banker, and I wanted to find some things out because when you take a loan in a bank, I always thought that process is very strange. Okay, so I asked him like, what is actually like that's like a contractual situation. Like me, I'm coming here, and that's you, the banker, and I want to borrow money from you, the banker. Okay, so isn't that a contract? And I started asking him all these questions. Like, but there's only one signature. I'm signing it, and then you keep the original. That's not a contract. A contract is both you and me have an original paper, and we're happy, right? So why is if I borrow money from you and we want to cover our asses, why is that situation different than from the bank? So I said, well, what are you getting at? He asked. And I said, this looks, I mean, if you just look at it like a 5-year-old, that loan situation, it looks more like I'm writing a check to the bank, doesn't it? And he started like what the hell? And so that's the equivalent, that's like a parallel story to you and the scientific community, right? And he freaked out, like he hasn't. I can't talk to him anymore, and because and I said I need to be very very clear here. I'm not accusing you. We have known each other for 35 years. And I'm not accusing you. I mean, and that would be ridiculous because you're not behind the banking or the loan system. So as a first place, that would be ridiculous. And number two, you're a dear friend of mine. I would never torment you or, put you in the place. But as a banker, I mean, you have to admit that some of these things are very, very strange. Like it's supposed to be a contract or an agreement, at least. And in contract law, there are certain stipulations for it to be a contract in international law. And so you have to admit that this is pretty funky. It looks strange, right? Like, where is my original document? I don't come back from this situation with it. The bank keeps it, and I think they're selling it. Isn't that how it is? And he started, I mean, he got red in the face and so I made a mess. But I mean, these are innocent questions, right? And at one point he admitted, like, there's something strange. I agree, there's something strange with this. And now I started reading, and like they actually stealing that. That's what it is a security instrument, and they're stealing it. I'm convinced of it because I checked out the laws and stuff.
Oh, it's far deeper than that. Like the law. So the bank bases its operations on law. It's not basing it on an agreement with its clients. It is just adhering to the rules of the law. And these are humans writing these rules, right? So as bizarre as it sounds, there's this guy. It's called, what's it called? The Great, oh fuck, what is it called? I can send you the link maybe later. But the wording in the law is that even if you have paid off your mortgage, the bank and or the government is the legal proprietor or owner of your
Oh
land,
yeah, I
right? Like
think yeah, I know what you're.
it doesn't even matter that you've paid the fucking thing off.
Yeah,
They've worded it, they've used language in such a way
yeah, yeah.
to
No, I
make
think
it
I know what
that
you.
even if you've paid off your your
Mm.
house that they
I
can
know,
still
yeah.
take it from you if they
Yeah,
want to.
I think I know the link you're talking about even. I think I've seen it. It's called The Great
The
something, The
great
Greed.
taking or the great,
Yeah, I've seen it. I know what you're
yeah,
talking about, I
right?
think. Yeah.
That, yeah,
It
that,
shows
yeah,
that what it shows is that you actually don't owe anything. You own nothing. That's
that's
what it
right.
shows.
And you'll be happy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, I thought of his reaction and so on when I, question his field or whatever you want to call it.
I had the
So,
same reaction.
and
I had the
and
same
I mean,
reaction
it's pretty.
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
It's pretty obvious that I'm not questioning him as my friend. I thought, and I said, I'm aware of that. It takes a little bit from you, like integrity wise and courage and so on. But you have to admit that stuff is pretty strange when it comes to, especially this loan application, because it looks
Hmm.
like a contractual situation. But what it really is I'm writing like a promissory note. I'm writing a check, and the bank keeps that and doesn't really tell me what's going on. And he freaks out and he can't talk to me anymore. And so
It's
that
because
shows how people react when you question, the livelihood, identity, and these things, right?
when you pull, when a person sees what's behind the curtain, right? Because they don't actually understand, right? They were all just going on other people's authority, and we haven't figured it all out. It doesn't all make sense. All of this stuff is built on concepts that fundamentally don't make any sense. It's all built on sand
Mm.
and mirrors. And when you reveal that to the person that's deeply involved in that system, they get really defensive.
Oh
I
yeah.
remember this is the problem that I had with my friend of again 20 years that was going to move out here. So, and live here like you and I have discussed. But we were in the car, and fortunately, it was my car, so he couldn't stop and say, "Get the fuck out." But we were driving
Mm.
back from British Columbia, like 15 fucking hour drive, right? And I started going on. He was an economist, right? Like he got his degree, master's in economy, right? In
Mm.
economics. So I was going on about this number thing, how it doesn't really like really
Ah,
digging into.
ah, yeah.
And he said, "You just need to stop now," right? Like he's a
Ah,
big guy, and it was like we're going to get into a fucking fight here. And if it
well,
was
yeah.
him, he would stop the car and say, "Get out of my fucking car, or I'll stop talking
Mm.
about this." Right? Because it was so deeply offensive to him. Because I was
Yeah.
challenging his beliefs. I was challenging the entire system
Mm.
of economics, I guess, and symbol and language itself. And
Mm.
he couldn't go there, right? He was just like, "You just need to stop now because I'm
Yeah, yeah,
gonna
yeah.
fucking
No, I
punch you."
experienced it. Yeah, I also experienced it, and I thought I was pretty diplomatic and kind of soft attitude. But
Yeah. Well, I
yeah,
wasn't, as you can
no,
imagine.
yeah, no, you're a Roy.
Yeah, but he's
I
a
mean,
lot
you
bigger than
you
me.
you you would think you can do that with a friend, but I mean, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, but those are yeah, it's different with a thing that really becomes your own experience. I wouldn't react like that when it comes to. Uh, yeah, I can't really. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Uh, but I mean, it's obvious that people become that identity, and that's very sensitive. So that shows what you're up against also with this, in many ways. But I mean, I don't know. Yeah, the proof is in the pudding when it comes down to it, and that is what the chat also sees when I described, direct experience and what changes and so on.
Hmm.
Mm.
All right. Well, we've gone, I think, long enough. I don't want to
Yeah.
get too redundant in these and go over
No,
the
no,
same
it's
shit.
fine. Yeah, it's fine. But I think we have agreed, like it's still useful, this
I think it's still
experiment.
useful. I think overall it's a positive influence on getting the word out, getting non-conceptuality out, and getting people to think along these lines. Yeah. So I'm gonna keep on. Like I'm gonna start going into delving into different aspects, specific aspects of my theory and talk to him about it, talk to it about it. It's always a guy for a guy. It's like, you're Trinity?
Yeah,
I always
yeah,
thought you were a guy. Most guys do.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
yeah.
Most guys.
All
Okay,
right,
cool.
cool, Peter.
Yeah, take care.
Take care. Talk to you later.
Ciao.